Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's March 23rd, and on this date in 1957, the North Carolina Tar Heels won the basketball national championship in a thriller. It was the top-ranked Tar Heels against the second-ranked Kansas Jayhawks, who, of course, had the 7'1" Wilt Chamberlain. North Carolina had barreled through the season with a perfect 31-0 record, beating opponents by an average of more than 8 points a game that year. Chamberlain was a sophomore, but again, back then, freshmen were not allowed to play on the varsity team, so this was his first collegiate season. Chamberlain exploded on the scene in his first game, scoring 52 in his debut back on December 3rd. He finished the season averaging nearly 30 points and 19 boards a game, and was a consensus first-team All-American. The Tar Heels had senior Lennie Rosenbluth, who averaged 28 points and 9 rebounds that year and was also a consensus first-team All-American. The game was tight throughout, but with 1:45 to play, Kansas's Gene Elston hit a layup and was fouled by Rosenbluth. The bucket gave the Jayhawks a 3-point lead. The foul was Rosenbluth's fifth, and he was done for the night. Elston missed the free throw, though, and that left enough life in the Heels to battle back to tie it. Joe Quigg hit a bucket to make it a 1-point game, and then Tommy Kearns hit a free throw to tie it up. The Heels even had 2 good looks at the basket in the final seconds to win it, but both shots were off the mark. So, tied at 46, the game went to overtime. Each team managed just 1 bucket in the first OT, and then both went scoreless in the second OT. Now heading to the third overtime, tied at 48, the Heels, without their senior All-American Lennie Rosenbluth, needed somebody to fill that void if they were going to win the title, and that player turned out to be Joe Quigg. Down 1 with 6 seconds on the clock, Quigg was fouled, went to the free throw line, and calmly sank both to give Carolina the lead. On the final play, everybody in the building knew they were going to try to get the ball to Wilt. Quigg climbed the ladder to get a hand on the entry pass and swatted it to Kearns, who dribbled out the clock. The Heels won 54-53, finished the season a perfect 32-0, and won their first national basketball championship. Chamberlain scored 23 to lead all scorers. Rosenbluth led the Heels with 20 points. Now, interesting fact, this was actually the second straight triple overtime game North Carolina had played and won. They needed 3 OTs to beat Michigan State in the semifinals to advance. In that game, a buzzer-beating half-court shot by Michigan State that went in was disallowed because the rule at the time was not when the ball left the shooter's hand, but whether the shot had reached the apex of its arc on the way to the basket. The shot was ruled to be still ascending. Now, talk about a judgment call. Wow. Moving ahead to this day in 1974, it was another huge win for an ACC team as NC State ended the UCLA Bruins' dynastic streak of 7 national championships with an 80-77 win in double OT in a semifinal game of the NCAA tournament. Bill Walton called it the most disappointing game he played in as a collegian. The Bruins had a 5-point lead late in regulation and were up 7 in the second overtime. Walton led all scorers with 29 points and 18 rebounds. David Thompson scored 28 and had 10 boards, while Tommy Burleson had 20 points and 14 rebounds. The Wolfpack won the national title with a win over Marquette 2 days later. In 1994, Wayne Gretzky, playing with the Los Angeles Kings, scored his 802nd goal, passing Gordie Howe as the NHL's all-time leader in goals scored. Marty McSorley slid a pass to Gretzky, who slotted it past Vancouver Canucks goalie Kirk McLean at the 14:47 mark of the second period to make the great one the greatest goal scorer in the NHL. It was the 62nd NHL record that Gretzky had put his name on. And in 1991, the World League of American Football kicked off its first season with games in Frankfurt, Germany, Sacramento, California, Birmingham, Alabama, Barcelona, Spain, and Orlando, Florida. The WLAF was the forerunner to NFL Europe, and it was backed by the NFL. The league only lasted 2 seasons, though. It came back in 1995, and then it was rebranded as NFL Europe in 1998, and rebranded again in 2007 as NFL Europa before folding later that year. And hey, a quick note before today's non-sports fun fact, and please pardon the tangent, but first, this podcast is a passion project for me. I hope that comes through when I'm delivering the stories, because I do have a true passion for sports. I grew up a sports fan. I wanted to be involved in sports from a very young age, and was for a very long time in different capacities. Secondly, I am not against artificial intelligence. It is an amazing advance that will have major positive impacts on just about every aspect of our lives. But we must continue to value the human. This podcast is a one-person project. It's just me. I research using different sources. I write it, which can take several hours per episode. I fact-check it as best I can. And if I mess something up, I will come back and correct it. I voice and edit and produce and pay the hosting fees, all because I love this. It is human-powered. Value the human. All right, today's non-sports Did You Know? Arizona cotton farmers harvest enough cotton each year to make 2 T-shirts for every living American. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.